times do I have to tell you what a electric vibe there was at St. Thomas Sports Park? Because we put this on a poll on Twitter, because I don't know if everybody felt it the way that I did yesterday. And I think, Twitter is a naturally overreactive place, but that's where I see a lot of you guys. That's where a lot of you guys interact with me the most. So that's where I get the most sense of how everybody's feeling. And we put it to a poll, simply the presence of Julio Jones for one day of OTAs. Is it a big deal to you? Is it no deal to you? Do you think it's largely irrelevant? Do you think that we are overhyping a dude going through individual wide receiver drills? Because I would tell you flatly that you're wrong. Lucas, I haven't felt that way at a Titans practice since Mike Vrabel's first year, training camp, 2018. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they had joint practices. Now, Jameis was still the quarterback at the time. Marcus Mariota, of course, still the quarterback for Tennessee. But one thing stood out to me while watching the Buccaneers at those joint training camp practices. This was at a time when the Titans wide receiving core, at least the top three, consisted of Corey Davis, Taywan Taylor, both in year two, and Tajay Sharp. Those were the starting wide receivers for this team. It was juxtaposed. It was running parallel against on another practice field at the same facility while the Buccaneers were here. Deshaun Jackson, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin. And I remember standing on the sidelines of practices that day. It was my second year covering the Titans and being just dumbstruck, blown away by how much different that core of wide receivers looked compared to what the Titans had. Godwin, Evans, Jackson, next to Corey Davis, Taywan Taylor, and Tajay Sharp. It's not even the same position hardly. It was a totally different caliber of player. I remember standing there and looking at the practice field that day and being like, my God, this is what professional wide receivers are supposed to look like. Davis Sexton on YouTube says, how could you not be excited? It's Julio. That's what I'm saying, because that was the same feeling that I left practice or OTAs, keep your powder dry, left OTAs feeling yesterday. This is a totally different caliber of player than I am accustomed to seeing. You know how many times I've watched those Titans individual wide receiver drills? A.J. Brown makes a big difference. He is a wide receiver one. In fact, you'll hear from Julio Jones on that matter here in just a second. But yesterday was the first time since 2018 that things that I saw from a wide receiver on those practice fields legitimately stopped me in my tracks. And everybody else who was out there. I was talking to Robbie Boren, who's the Titans head of PR, and the entire media corps. I don't know that I watched another position drill yesterday, Lucas. I didn't stray from the right-hand sideline where the wide receivers were working out.
You and everyone else.
All eyes on him. And I remember I was talking to Robbie, and Robbie said, yeah, the offensive lineman could be doing ballet drills, and nobody would notice today.
Yeah, jumping jacks.
I said if you see any ballerinas out here, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to sit here and watch Julio. 615-737-1045. The effects were tangible. And as I said, you'll hear from Julio in just a moment. But Evan in Nashville is called in to talk about Mike Evans. Good morning, Evan. How are you?
Good, Buck. How are you doing, man?
I'm great, brother.
Hey, so yeah, I was at that 2018 training camp practice session as well, and you're absolutely right, man. Just the disparity among the receivers on the Titans and the Bucs was just absolutely crazy, and I think it was perfectly summed up during a 7-on-7 drill. I don't know if you happened to catch it. That's what I was asking if you did. But Mike Evans just completely juked Malcolm Butler out of his shoes. I happened to catch it on tape, so I can DM you the highlight, but I was just wondering if you caught that by any chance, because he absolutely roasted him. And I think it goes along perfectly with what you were saying.
Oh, 100%. I don't remember the specific drill, but I saw Mike Evans do that to a lot of people that day. If you want to slide in my DMs, Evan, you're more than welcome. See, at least he's nice. At least he asked permission. I have some dude sending me unsolicited Richard pics, except, it's like Dick Stockton. It's just random pictures of various Richards throughout history. So I got Dick Stockton the other day.
You got Nixon?
I got Dick Clark. I got Dick Butkus. This is what is happening in my DM. So, Evan, if you would like to slide in with something,
So people are just sending you photos of men in history named Richard.
Yeah. This is what
Well
Evan
played, people on Twitter.
What Evan wants to send me feels less violating. But the point stands. Julio Jones is treating the Tennessee Titans. The thing that I took away most is that Julio Jones is treating the Tennessee Titans like a destination. Ladies and gentlemen, in the year of the Rona, 2021, we have people coming to Nashville, Tennessee to ring chase. In what world? Julio, it was his first media availability yesterday. We had the opportunity to ask him a handful of questions, but he spent some time talking about, what he's going to look like in this offense, how he's going to adapt to not seeing as many targets. And basically, what Julio said was that he is not concerned about the stats at this point.
It's just, at the end of the day, you want to create a winning culture. However you need to do it to get the job done. My whole career, I've never been a stat guy. Previous years, everybody always asking me what you thinking you're gonna do, what's your prediction, things like that. I've never been a stat guy. I'm a team guy. I'm just excited to be a part of the organization, and whatever they need from me to do, I'm willing to do it and play my role and play it at a high level.
Julio Jones speaking to Titans media yesterday. Not a stat guy, a team guy. He's talking about helping build a winning culture here in Tennessee. He's not concerned about targets. He's not concerned about catches, touchdowns either. He did what was necessary in Atlanta. A lot of times it was necessary for Julio Jones to carry them physically up and down the field. In Tennessee, he's coming into a much different situation. He will be the focal point, I'm certain, starting out. And he may continue to be the focal point if he finds ways to continue burning defenses despite attracting additional attention. But he is coming in here. He is talking about the Tennessee Titans, how, he thinks of it as a college fan base, which I thought was interesting. And this comes from somebody who played at Alabama. In fact, Lucas, if we have that, Julio Jones spoke on that yesterday, coming back to an SEC environment a little bit here in the state of Tennessee.
Well, I didn't do too much. I just know guys anyways that's on the team, like I said, like Derek and AJ, right? And Terry Robisky was here, Harry Douglas was here, things like that. So just knowing about the organization then, but also it's just you have to be here to understand, the feeling here, as far as the fan base and the way they treat you, and it's unconditional about, just effort, just like you just feel like you can just go out there and just give your all, no matter what happens, they're gonna be behind you, right? Instead of just going out there and thinking, okay, if I make a mistake, I do this, I'm to blame or I'm shamed and things like that. They definitely had that college experience atmosphere here. So that's what I love about it as well. And just the culture of the team.
Julio Jones, Tennessee Titans wide receiver, out there rocking the number 2, or in the Titans font, it looks more like a Z. Either way, it's live and in person, man. I could not stop. I'm on TikTok now. So I used some of the Julio Jones highlights to make a TikTok, put it to little Elvis Crespo, Suavemente. It was beautiful out there. I could not take my eyes off this man, and nor could anybody else out there, including the players that were out there on the same practice field as him. We will spend more time. Coach Mack of Titans Radio will be here for his weekly appearance. We'll get back into the Julio Jones conversation before Mack joins us. But in the meantime, I want to talk about college football playoff expansion, because that conversation is being had across the sports world today. Braden Gall, our friend from 440 Sports, is going to join us to help us make sense of it. And I want to know from you guys, are you in or are you out on college football playoff expansion? because they're talking about they're not going from 4 to 8 potentially in 2023. They're talking about juicing it from 4 to 12 teams. I think that's a very, very fascinating discussion. We'll have that with Braden Gall coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Titans talk and speculation on your smart speaker. Just ask Alexa to play 104.5 The Zone.
But he's driven back inside the 5, and they fling it to the turf.
Your home for Titans football and the flagship for Titans radio. 104.5 The Zone.
DraftKings Sportsbook is not only my favorite sportsbook, but it's also America's top-rated sportsbook app. I love using DraftKings Sportsbook because it's easy to navigate, has plenty of instructions for new bettors, and nearly limitless ways to get in on all the action. My friends and family have been loving DraftKings Sportsbook, and I know you will too. When you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, they are putting you courtside with a chance to turn $1 into $100 in site credits. You download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code WGFX when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits. You bet on the basketball team of your choice to win their next game, and if they do, you will claim $100 in free credits. That's promo code WGFX for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 years or older and present in Tennessee to bet. Wager paid out, in-site credits, restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789.
Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider and are only available if the provider determines a prescription is approved.
Bob there? What happened, Lucas? He dropped? Oh, did I drop him? Bob, we got you.
Hello?
Go. Okay, go. My bad, Bob.
Hello.
You're on the air. Go ahead,
Okay.
Bob.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, just and everything, and I was thinking because we had the freak here that used to play here. He was like the freak of nature, just big and strong, and he was all over the place. And now we got another big guy that's around that has all kinds of just accolades and things that he has done and everything. And my most memory part of this guy is when he played in the Super Bowl, how they had like 2 and 3 guys on this guy. This guy still was able to do some tremendous catches on the sideline. The toe jack swag, that was one of the biggest I've never seen anybody do before. Anyway, I think we ought to give this guy a nickname. And the name I like is what you think about Terminator X? Because this guy here, he's the best. But anyway, guys, that's all I got.
Hey, I appreciate the call, Bob. 615-737-1045. Braden Gall, would you like to weigh in?
Nicknames are cool.
What's yours?
Mine? I don't think I've ever had a nickname. I have a weird name.
I got plenty for you.
Well, those are just things you say. I have a weird name. When you have a weird first name, you don't really get too many nicknames.
Bray.
Ew.
Yes, that's
Ew.
quite disgusting.
Stop. So I'm gonna Bob, I appreciate your nomination. We do not want you Julio, or excuse me, Liam Neeson. Braden is familiar with this bit. Liam Neeson, is Terminator X a good enough nickname for Julio Jones?
No.
Thank you.
Terminator Z.
Why? Because he wears number 2 and it looks like a Z in the Titans font?
That's worse.
Yes.
What? Wait, what?
That was Liam.
Where'd you get a yes?
I found a Liam Neeson yes.
What the hell? That was disorienting to me.
I'd like a Liam Neeson doing like, I'm not sure.
That's basically
I'll
what
work on that.
That's basically what I do to Lucas for 3 hours a day. I just send him diving across the internet for random sound bites that I need. No, Julio's nickname is Julio, Bob. Quintores Lopez. Julio. That's what they're going to say when this man catches touchdowns. They don't even do that for A.J. Brown. A call to action. V-Love has just tweeted me, Juan Julio. Ooh, that falls in line with my beverage of choice. Man, why is V-Love better at producing the radio show than we are?
He really is.
Juan Julio, for real, taking shots of Don Julio outside of 125 in the south end zone after every touchdown A.J. Brown or Julio Jones scores this season. He's got a photoshopped Don Julio bottle with Julio Jones' face and A.J. Brown's face on top of it because, of course, Arthur Juan Brown and Quintores Lopez Jones, your Tennessee Titans starting wide receivers. Hello, Braden. How are you?
People have too much time on their hands.
I mean,
and I love you, love.
Hey, listen, all we're going to have is time on our hands once the NFL goes on vacation. But in the meantime, we have college football playoff expansion to talk. Why now? The report coming out from Nicole Auerbach of The Athletic yesterday. We were in the middle of the show. We were doing Julio Jones press conferences, so I did not see the news until later last night. But the college football playoff subcommittee of many subcommittees, I guess, are responsible for the college football playoff, whatever the hell.
Four dudes.
And it's Bob Bowlesby, it's Greg Sankey, it's the Mountain West commissioner, and it's Jack Swarbrick.
Craig Thompson, Mountain West commissioner. Yes, they've been working on this for like 2 years.
Right.
And there was a great quote from Swarbrick yesterday, who's the AD at Notre Dame. He's like, you morons in the media didn't get a single leak out of us. It's been the most rewarding work of our entire lives because you people didn't get a leak. And so I think it shows you how long they've been working on this. Greg Sankey, if you read between the lines of all of his comments over the years, you can kind of see in hindsight now that this was all coming. We talked 12 teams. If you're going to take a hack at this and try to fix the problem, which is sort of, 2/3 of the country being uninterested in the sport before the end of October, I think you got to take a pretty big swing at it, and 12 teams is a pretty big swing. And going from 3 playoff games to, 11? I mean, that's just dollar signs. That's
Yeah.
all that is. And so if it helps the sport a little bit from a health standpoint, I was vehemently opposed to expansion. I wanted excellence over access. I wanted it to be incredibly difficult to win the national championship, the regular season being extremely meaningful. All the talking points, right? I've changed my mind on all of it. I think having having more games, more teams involved, more conferences paying attention for longer is better for the health of the sport writ large, and I think that's good for the SEC. So I think this was a long time coming. I think it happened faster because of the pandemic. I think that moved everything up a notch, kind of like everything in the world. But this is going to happen much, much faster than people think. I think in 2 years we could be talking about this format. There's some major flaws, but it's largely pretty darn good as they presented it yesterday.
Braden Gall of 440 Sports is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. At Braden Gall at 440 Sports is where you can follow them and their incredible network of podcasts, all manner of podcasts for every need at this point, basically. Even in the midst of a podcast feud with Will Bowling. I don't think you and I have talked about this.
You mean Nashville's original local independent morning podcast?
Yeah. How's that?
Morning?
I mean, listen, imitation is the best form of flattery.
I agree.
But is
I
that
totally
cutting
agree.
into your daily morning podcast business?
Not at all. Here's the problem, though. Like, I'm up at 4:40 for obvious branding reasons. So if he just moved his up to 4:30, I couldn't do anything. I'm just kind of stuck at 4:40. So I'm beating him every morning by 20 minutes. But
so you would even do yourself in just to stay with the 4:40.
I can't move it. Like it's there. It's set in stone, basically. Unlike the playoff.
Goodness. Well, yeah. So this has been my largest point of contention with all of this, because I remember you and I have worked together for a long time, and I remember your position on this being longstanding anti-expansion, and I never understood it, because from my standpoint, as a fringe college football fan, you would have entire conferences checked out by October because of the way that the playoff was set up. Now, I liked the playoff in its initial format when they went from BCS to playoff. I think this is a much cleaner process. It's a much better way of determining the best 4 teams in college football. But then I would look at the redundancy of it and see, what was it, Alabama, Clemson Part 4 in terms of college football playoff national championship games, and you're turning it into a regional sport where college football, I mean, maybe it's already regional, but it's the second biggest thing outside of the NFL, and nothing else is terribly a close third. So to see the way that the college football playoff numbers would dip because of the way that the sport was basically pigeonholing itself to the South and Ohio State or Notre Dame, yeah. I always felt like this was the route that they had to go. Was this inevitable, I guess, is what I'm asking you.
100%, because, number one, people are greedy. And, again, 11 playoff games. If I'm going to – if 3 playoff games per year is worth $4 billion, what is 11 playoff games per year going to be worth? So basically everybody wins in this, with the exception of course, the giant free labor force that's doing all the work. They need to be compensated and thought of very carefully through all of this. But it is kind of inevitable, because now here's the other thing, though. This playoff is just – it's not going to change what you're talking about. It's still going to be Bama, Clemson, Ohio State winning the national championship.
Sure.
We're not actually going to be able to change any of that. Like, go back and look at all the different playoff formats. Okay, Cincinnati gets in as a 12 seed. Is Cincinnati going to win 3 straight games against Clemson, Ohio State, and Alabama back-to-back weeks? Of course not. We're just tricking the rest of the country into thinking they have a chance. But what happens is it turns into Omaha, Nebraska, like the College World Series. We're just getting to that event in Omaha for college baseball teams is something you celebrate. You put a banner up, you sell it to recruits. The talent maybe disperses a little bit because, I don't know, Indiana and Kyle Schwarber got to the College World Series one year. So that's what's going to happen, is you're going to have teams like South Carolina and Missouri and Arkansas and Kentucky, teams that would never have a chance to make the playoff. Maybe that one great year where they put it all together and they get to 11-2 or 10-2. All of a sudden they're an 11 seed and they get into the playoff, and sure, they have no chance to actually win it, but they get in and then they get to sell that on the recruiting trail. And over time, hopefully that means with 35 programs going to the playoff instead of just like 7, it spreads out the talent gap and spreads out the wealth in recruiting, hopefully over a long period of time. So basically we're just tricking everyone into thinking that they've got an opportunity to compete for a championship. Like, really it's still just going to be Bama.
That's fine. Trick
But,
me.
like that's all it is.
Keep me invested longer.
Yeah.
Keep me invested longer. Now, for obvious reasons, the University of Tennessee, the team that we spend the most time talking about, the most time watching, would still not factor into this equation if you expanded the postseason at this juncture. But for the sake of just, as I said, fringe college football fans who are going to continue to pay attention to the sport, and I know we're in SEC country. It's super embedded and ingrained into the fiber of our existence as people who live in this part of the country. But I'm looking for reasons to stay invested longer, because when I get to the national championship game, one, it's the same problem I have with baseball. It's so long. It's so long, the game itself, that I'm already like going into it with the mindset of, okay, this is, I'm going to hate watch this. I know I have to do it because we're going to talk about it.
Well, you know me, like I'm obsessed with college football, and I should have been ecstatic to watch Alabama, Ohio State. Any other year of my life, I would have been just, oh my God, this is what I've always wanted. We've never had Bama, Ohio State in the national title game. We've got the best program in the North, the best program in the South, whatever. Like that should have been something I was ecstatic to sit down and watch. Justin Fields versus Bama. And I just didn't have the same. It just didn't have the same juice. And to your point, some of that's that it takes 6.5 hours for that game to be finished.
Ugh.
But again, that game's not going to change, folks. Like maybe there's a 6 or a 7 seed, like a Georgia or an Oklahoma or somebody that actually gets hot at the right time. Maybe they lost 2 games early in the year, and they're riding a hot streak into the playoff, and they can go on a run and win 3 games and get to the national title game. And maybe somebody can pull an upset. And there's certainly that possibility, which is already better than what the previous 14 playoff looked like. This is really just about, like, again, I think you'll get better games like 7 versus 10, 5 versus 12, 6 versus 11. You're going to get more opportunity for more good football to keep more of the country watching. And even if it ends up being Bama, Clemson in the championship game every single year, or whoever is that team at that time, because again, in the 2000s it would have been Florida and USC,
right.
And it's all in the late 90s it would have been Tennessee or Florida State and Miami. Like there's always somebody that's just dominant,
cyclical.
Yeah, and Tennessee, I didn't mention Tennessee when I said teams like South Carolina, Kentucky, Missouri, because those are beneath Tennessee, in my opinion, not this year, but in general. Tennessee competes for national championships when they are good. They have not been good. That's a different story altogether. Stop hiring terrible people. So that nobody's immune to that. So Tennessee is absolutely in, could they finish 8th in the country with the right coach and the right, staff? Of course they could. And if they're finishing 8th in the country, you're going to the playoff every year. And that's the difference. You don't have to be Bama anymore to get in. You can just be 8th in the country. And 8th or 9th in the country, there's a lot of teams that can get to that level.
Right. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the new proposed college football playoff format in the again, proposed expansion from 4 teams to 12 teams, it would not go into effect if it is accepted until 2023. It's the 6 highest ranked conference champions in either their the 6 highest ranked conference champions, and the rest filled with the highest ranked at-large teams, is the way that the format is going to look. Now, Max Olson of The Athletic put out a projected college football playoff for the past season, 2020, where you have Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma, the top 4 seeds, but then you fill it out with Notre Dame at 5, Texas A&M, Florida, Cincinnati, Georgia, Iowa State, Indiana, my football Hoosiers.
Think they could have beaten Texas A&M?
And then Coastal Carolina.
No, they couldn't. But that's not the point. The point is they got in, and the point is they sell that to recruits. And if that gives them one extra player on the recruiting trail every year, that's the point, right? Is to just get that 1 or 2 extra player to come to your school. And also 2020, Max is a great dude, does good work, but 2020 is a terrible year to do that sort of revisionist history with, because the Pac-12 didn't even play a season. Like, it's just not a good year to use that. But if you go back and use all the other years, 14 through 19, since we adopted the playoff, and you kind of fill out the pseudo 12-team bracket and sort of, do it retroactively, you're talking like 40 teams that have made the playoff over a 7-year period of time. You know how many teams have made the playoff right now in the 7 years? How many different teams? 11.
Yeah.
6 of them have made it one time. It's basically just Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Clemson, Ohio State, and Alabama.
It's a rotating cast.
So, again, if you're quadrupling the number of teams that are going to be in, I don't know. Like, there's 2 major problems. You've got to consider the athletes on this, and you're asking them to play potentially 16-game seasons, 3 extra weeks after the regular season. You've got to take care of the health and safety of the student athlete. That's number one. Number two, the idea of playing a neutral field SEC championship game 1 week, then having to play a neutral field quarterfinal, a neutral field semifinal, and a neutral field championship game is one of the dumbest things I can ever possibly think of. That is cronyism at its finest. That is the powers that be that run college football literally lining the pockets of their golfing buddies that run these bowl games. And that is the dumbest crap I've ever heard. And it needs to be home sites for the first and second, and maybe even third round, and then play the national championship game at a neutral site like the Super Bowl.
Okay, shut up and hang on to that thought for a second. We're going to come back. Brett, you want to stick around since you dragged your butt down
I'm
here?
already here.
All right. We'll come back with Braden Gall of 440 Sports, and we'll continue the college football playoff expansion conversation. I just had a buddy text me, put some respect on Tom Allen's name. You're damn right. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
J. Martin Ramon, you just keep doing you.
I'll do this, you do you. I just nod my head on that one.
Jason Martin and Ramon Foster, Monday mornings starting at 6 on 104.5 The Zone.
proposing the idea that in 2023 the field will go from 4 to 12. Now you were ranting and raving about neutral site games all the way through because that was something that came up in the conference call with the college football playoff subcommittee that is presenting this for installation in the 2023 season. And like because I listened back to some of it, and one of the reporters asked about why neutral sites as opposed to teams who perform better, who have the better record, whether they're doing it by strength of schedule, whatever the hell, why they wouldn't be allowed to host these semifinal and these initial college football playoff games. And the response was, well, nobody wants to play in East Lansing in December.
That's football.
And
what are we talking about?
I'm sitting there screaming, Michigan State sure as hell would like to play in East Lansing in December.
Well, and frankly, if Michigan State's in the first round, they would play in East Lansing.
Right.
And so Notre Dame can't get a bye because they don't play a conference championship game. So they would automatically play in the first round, and the first round game would be in South Bend, Indiana. So again, this is all like people don't understand the relationship between the conferences and the bowl games. They're all just like in the good old boys club. They're all just buddies, and there is no reason for the Cotton Bowl to be, a national semifinal or quarterfinal. National championship game, fine. If you want to rotate it through a bunch of neutral sites like the Super Bowl, that's great. I have no problem with that. I think, frankly, Pasadena and the Rose Bowl should just host the national championship game every year. I'd be totally fine with that. We all know UCLA is never going to get there, so it's fine. I think the idea that we would not showcase home stadiums, give teams advantages for actually becoming a 1-seed or a 2-seed or a 3-seed or a 4-seed, which right now would not ever get a home game.
Right.
If you're 5 through 8, you get a home game in this format. If you're 1 through 4, you get a bye, but no home game. What sense does that make? It makes no sense at all. And so, again, then people are going to say, well, but these are bowl games that add money to the local economy. I'm like, yeah, what about the Auburn economy? What about these small college towns with small businesses that would make a fortune? What about season ticket holders and the cost and the revenue that they could generate if you're charging Alabama fans for first right of season ticket, like for playoff tickets?
Oh, my God, it'd be a bidding war.
Like LSU playoff tickets. So, again, when you start talking about revenue and what's good for the economies and good for the schools and good for everybody, like what's good for us as fans and viewers, are you telling me Neyland Stadium is not a better place to watch a playoff game than Mercedes-Benz Stadium? Like, give me a break with that crap.
It's so sanitized.
It's just this is the one thing. The NFL is corporate and it's fine. It is what it is compared to college football. That's the reason people love college football. But let them be that way. Let's showcase what's great about college football, which is Neyland Stadium, Death Valley, the Swamp. Like, that's what makes college football great, are these small towns with these small campuses and these massive stadiums. And oh, by the way, let's generate some revenue for the economy as well. They're worth like $12, $13, $14 million in local revenue each home game. So why not? That would be even bigger for a playoff game. I don't know why we're going to let the Tax Slayer Bowl get to host a national quarterfinal. Like, what? I don't understand. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Dadson Worldwide on YouTube is agreeing with you. Lack of historical understanding of Bowls' place is partly to blame. Seeing it as anything but building and educating young minds also. It's a twisted perception he's getting into some meta stuff. Twisted perception by society.
Whoa.
Bowls made it what it was with local business and charities. It was nothing but how we see high school Friday night football until Bowls put it on TV for us in the 60s. So Dadson got a little bit of a historical experience.
Bowl games were great up until about 2002 or so, whatever. And then we went from having 20 bowl games to 40 bowl games. And
that's background noise.
It's just it's television programming for Christmas week for television networks. And that's fine. I watch them. They're great. I don't not watch them. And unless we stop watching them, they're going to keep doing them. And that's the only reason they keep doing them is because people keep watching them. But if you want them to why again, here's the other thing. Asking fan bases to travel to 4 neutral site games. Imagine that, asking the Titans fans to do that if they were the 1 seed in the AFC and they had home field advantage throughout the playoffs.
Right.
Imagine asking Titans in the wild card round, the divisional round, and the AFC championship game. You have to travel to a different city that neither team is located in.
Yeah.
For 3 straight weeks. It makes my head hurt.
I can see the vein in Mike Vrabel's forehead just thinking about something like that. Braden Gall of 440 Sports is here with us for a few more minutes. Braden, what are you discussing? Because I know you have many podcasts in the 440 Sports Network, varying from Preds to college football to media. You have a good one with our friend Tatum Everett, who just became the new Vikings Amy Wells, which is exciting for Tatum.
Yeah, that show came out today, so go check that out. Lamestream Sports every Friday. And I do think people have a misunderstanding of media. To say that it's broken, I think, is a bit of an understatement on both sides, like people that do it, people that consume it, and everything. So we're just trying to, that show's just designed to. I'm a nerd for this stuff, and I'm actually probably more passionate about the media than I am about sports right now. So I love doing that product.
Am
With,
I still
Steve
the only
Cavendish.
two-time guest?
Nope. We've had one other two-time guest, but we actually wanted him to come on. So we actually asked him to come on a second time. We just had to have you on, unfortunately.
Did Buck force himself on?
No. I have two. How about this?
No, listen, I did not
just said no.
inherently force myself on, but the news demanded that I be on. Damn it!
So they did not consent to having you on the podcast.
Well, consent is important.
We have to cover the media. It's now I will say this: there are two people in this market, and I will not use their names. This is the tease. There are two people in this market that have begged to come on the show.
Oh, one I know.
Yeah, one you know, and we're holding off. We're holding off, making them wait to come on that show.
You know what that's called? Sweet, sweet justice. When we come back, we will get into some college baseball. Well, actually, Braden, do you have any thoughts on the two super regionals being hosted by the Vols and Vandy this weekend? Because T-Bob Hebert is going to be on here in just a little bit, and he's been starting fires on Vol Twitter.
Real quickly, I don't think East Carolina has seen anything like what Vanderbilt's going to throw at them literally this weekend. So I like Vandy in that game pretty big. They might lose Friday, but I think they'll win the series. I guess which is starting right now.
Yeah, like 8 minutes.
So dumb.
I'm a Tennessee fan, would be terrified of LSU. I would much rather have played Oregon. Oregon's a better team. They have more talent, but LSU loaded, lots of freshman talent. The Hall of Fame coach is retiring. There's history with when they went up there and got swept earlier and then complained about it in the press conference.
Win it for Bob.
There is so much there.
His name is Paul.
With LSU.
Whatever.
Good fact check.
Shut
I
up.
appreciate that.
It's not helpful.
Who the hell is Bob?
It's not help. I don't know. There's a lot of Bobs on my screen in front of me. There's a Bob on the phones. Shut up.
I don't know about you guys, but I would be nervous about the series with LSU. It just, for some reason, it makes me nervous.
They're red hot right now. Top of their lineup is scorching.
There's history, there's knowledge. They played in Knoxville. They know the crowd. There's experience there. Super talented, historic coach. Lots of things not to like about the matchup for Tennessee. If they play their game and they hit the ball the way they're supposed to, Tennessee will win. They're the better team. But man, you start getting off the field stuff mixed into this with kids, it can go sideways quickly.
Spicy. Well, you'll hear from Paul. Don't call him Bob Manieri here in just a second.
Manieri.
Whatever.
Bob Manieri.
I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone. Get me out of here.
We're on all your devices. 104.5 The Zone TV. Live on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and Periscope.
Tears, Tears, is what it says on his Twitter account right now. So we will catch up with T-Bob. Lucas made T-Bob his dumbest thing in sports this week. So you know that I'm absolutely going to fan the flames on that. I hope you're prepared.
Yes, well, we will have a civil conversation.
I don't believe that. He doesn't seem like he is in the mood for civil.
Yeah, he's got a picture of Bloody Smokey in his cover photo on Twitter.
It's a headless Smokey, it looks like, or a bludgeoned Smokey. This man is unconcerned with the volunteers, Tears. So T-Bob will join us momentarily. But let's listen to Jerry Stackhouse sing the national anthem. Now I'm intrigued.
Please now join Vanderbilt's head men's basketball coach, Jerry Stackhouse, in the singing of our national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched,
soul,
were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave?
Okay, Coach.
Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Go Doors!
That was good, man.
That was damn good.
That was really good.
That was men's basketball coach Jerry Stackhouse singing the national anthem at the opening of Vanderbilt Super Regional against East Carolina. Kumar Rocker is on the mound as we speak, and there has already been an out against LSU. So this is very exciting. Things trending well. ECU, not LSU. LSU will play the Vols later today. ECU, you heard Braden Gall talking about it right before he left. ECU has not seen anything like Vanderbilt is literally about to throw at them. We talked to Chris Burke, who's calling the Vols Super Regional. He's, of course, played at Tennessee. He's kept track of both teams over the course of this season and is very, very intimately familiar with them as well. Look at that. Top of the inning already done. Kumar Rocker is not playing around, ladies and gentlemen. This man is prepared to mow him down. But Chris Burke...
This was the setting in which he had the 19 strikeout no-hitter against Duke 2 years ago.
Right. Between him and Jack Leiter, I mean, they're damn near unhittable, the two of them. The only time that I've seen Jack Leiter have a bad day was against Tennessee.
Yeah.
In that, what was the second game of that series?
Yeah, he gave up back-to-back homers in that game and got pulled. He hit a little bit of a dip after he got off to I think 19, maybe 20 hitless innings. But yeah, it's the best 1-2 punch in the SEC.
Mayor of Jolton has tweeted us, haven't got chills like that since I heard Dave Chappelle sing Creep by Radiohead. I didn't know that was a thing.
I didn't either.
John Miller says, how does he live in Music City and not have a record deal? Talking about Jerry Stackhouse. Who knew Jerry Stackhouse had vocals like what I just heard on the Buck Reising show? Heck of a national anthem singing there by the coach. That's cousin Andrew on Twitter. I am equally impressed. Now, Vanderbilt baseball, the Vandy boys will have to match that intensity, that level of skill, and I believe them thoroughly capable of being able to do that. Now, technically, Vanderbilt, despite having won the national championship in 2019, the college baseball season kind of petered out due to COVID in 2020, so they are still technically the defending national champions. And I asked Chris Burke, who's calling the Vols series, the Super Regional, against LSU. Basically, what the difference between the national championship winning team for Vandy in 2019 is compared to this team that Tim Corbin now presides over.
I think they lack that star power. You're talking about the 2019. They lack that star power. How often are you going to have 2 top 5 picks? Well, I guess Vanderbilt, anything's possible, right? But, you got Austin Martin and J.J. Bleday in the same lineup. And then you got guys like, Phil Clark, who's, for me was, almost as talented as the other two. And so the offense just had so much sizzle, right? Just so much star power in that offense. The pitching was good enough. Drake Fellows and obviously Kumar became a superstar in the postseason. This year's team is more about the starting rotation, and then the offense is kind of a collective unit, right? I mean, you're getting great performances by Isaiah Thomas and Dominic Keegan and Carter Young, and like Enrique Bradfield is just a total game changer. So there's star pieces there, but just not as maybe big and bright as guys like Austin Martin and J.J. Bleday were. That being said, I still think Vanderbilt's got as good a shot to win the whole thing as anybody, especially when you look at the way Kumar and Leiter pitched last weekend.
That's ESPN college baseball analyst and VFL Chris Burke, who was on the radio show. What was that, Wednesday? We talked to Chris.
Yeah, Wednesday.
So go check out the podcast, The Buck Reising Show, in your favorite podcast app. So, I mean, the last time that we saw Vanderbilt in a super regional, as Lucas mentioned, was the 2019 season. Their season was on the line against Duke in that super regional, and Rocker absolutely shut down Duke. 19 strikeouts en route to Vandy's first no-hitter since 1971, and then, of course, they eventually went on to win the national championship. The stars are not as bright, as Chris Burke pointed out there, with this Vandy team as opposed to the one that we last saw in 2019, the one that went on to win it all. But there is zero doubt in my mind that they have the talent that is above and beyond really anybody else in the sport right now. I mean, I know we talked with Braden about LSU and how if he was the Vols, he would prefer to have seen Oregon based on the level of talent that the Tigers seems annually always have. LSU's baseball program has been so strong consistently over the years. But Vanderbilt, if you're asking me which team, and I don't think this is a controversial opinion, you're asking me which team between Vandy and the Vols are capable of going to Omaha and being able to take the College World Series, it's Vandy bar none. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think that's terribly wrong. The Vols, with the confidence and just what's transpired for them over the last 2 weeks, makes me think they're a contender. But Vandy's they've been there and done it. They have the best top 2 pitchers in the league, which probably means they've got the best number 1, number 2 in the nation. That 2019 team, though, was one of the best batting orders in college baseball history, like top to bottom. It was absolutely lethal. So it's not quite as strong this year, but Enrique Bradfield is one of the funnest players to watch in the SEC. But, yeah, if I have to put my money on one to actually win the national championship, I'd say Vanderbilt.
Enrique Bradfield currently sitting on first base right now, bottom of the first. Vandy, Kumar Rocker has
Probably
already
itching to steal second.
Yeah, of course. He is an unbelievable stealer of bases. You know who's an unbelievable stealer of Vol Twitter souls? T-Bob Hebert. The former LSU center, now turned talk show host, is going to join us coming up next because he has been after Vol Twitter this week. LSU and the Vols, of course, competing in the Super Regional in Knoxville this weekend as well. We will talk to T-Bob, and we will see if we can't stir some things up. Lucas is passionate. He nominated T-Bob for his dumbest thing in sports this week. So we're going to see if I can't instigate some problems between the two of them. Coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
The biggest topics. Will Bowling hosts the Zone Daily Podcast. Delivered every morning at 5 a.m. on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the entire Zone Podcast Network.
We all know trying to see where the good eateries are. I've actually never been. Now, LSU's been a ton.
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of like Tennessee in a way. I've never been, but I'm very excited, man. I think like right now hotels are still relatively cheap, so hoping we'll hop on a Resi tonight. Go ahead and lock it in.
I love it. Resi at TBob53 is where you can follow him. He has been Vol Twitter's main nemesis the past handful of weeks, and it started with Paul Maneri coming on your guys' radio show and describing the environment at Lindsey Nelson, being you quite honest about it in a way I feel that's uncommon from coaches. Lucas, I don't know if we have that audio for T-Bob or not. Lucas is going to go grab that here in just a second. Actually, let's go ahead and hear from the coach on off the bench earlier this year.
Listen, even though there wasn't a huge crowd at Tennessee, it was an extremely hostile environment.
Yeah.
They were nasty.
You could hear it.
Nasty.
You could hear it over the TV.
I mean, they were into Trey Morgan's head. I mean, they were on him from the moment he walked onto that field. And, I mean, it was a difficult situation with the umpiring. There were a lot of calls that went against, kids, and they were having to deal with that. The other team was not handling things with a lot of class, quite frankly. And it was an environment that those kids had been in for the very first time, and it was very difficult.
T-Bob, man, my producer Lucas, we do something called the dumbest thing in sports this week, and he nominated LSU's baseball coach as the dumbest thing in sports this week. Your rebuttal.
Fly is hello, did I lose you? Okay, look, sorry about that. I just got in my car. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you, brother. You're good.
Okay, look, my reply is simple. I just can't imagine what it would be like to cheer for a team that lacks such class. Like, I cannot imagine being a part of a fan base that would treat an opponent in such a way. I mean, I don't know about you, but me personally, I find that at Baton Rouge, we probably have the kindest, most classy, most I mean, we know how to host people, never say a cross word to another fan. So I completely understand where Coach Maneri's coming from. It had to be very hard to deal with such kind of baseless behavior, such classless behavior. It's really quite unbelievable. I don't know how y'all sleep at night.
Lucas, you're very quiet behind the microphone. You wanted the smoke from this man. Go get him.
It seems very hard. It seems like Coach Maneri took this very, very hard, and the rest of his team. I imagine the Tigers just crying in the locker room after the game, and Paul coming on your show. It was just hard. It was really hard, T-Bob.
It was. We're gonna see, man. Now look, and generally, look, Paul is one of the, because like you said, like you normally don't get coaches being that honest about this kind of stuff. Coach is one of the more honest, and that's why he's so much fun to cover. He will tell you how he's feeling, and he doesn't abide by like a lot of the kind of like, like what you come to expect of the alpha male coaches, where there's no excuses, there's no this or that. No, he's like, them Tennessee fans are being nasty. Now there is an interesting. There is an interesting element in all of this where I wonder if look, it's going to be way louder and way crazier this weekend. I wonder if in the end, who's that benefit it works out to, because some of the individual voices, which it sounds like Coach was saying, were like getting into Morgan's head and everything, kind of gets drowned out more when you enter. It's kind of an ironic thing when you're in a full house versus a more sparsely populated house. Like, I went to one LSU game this year, and like you could legitimately yell jokes that like people would laugh at throughout the stadium because everybody could hear it, right? So I don't know, dude. I think that coaches don't do things by accident. I think I think both sides are embracing their role in this. I think Tony Vitello loves being the bad guy. I know the Vols fans are going to try to be nastier than ever this weekend. I also think that Paul knows what he's doing in terms of kind of stoking the flames with his own team and trying to get them fired up to go into a hostile environment this weekend.
T-Bob Hebert here with us on 104.5 The Zone. I mean, but don't you think that's important? Like, I love this series so much more Vanderbilt's probably the better team than either LSU or the Vols, just as we're sitting here watching them against East Carolina right now. But I'm so much more invested in this super regional between Tennessee and LSU for that exact reason, because there is somebody out there stoking the flames, because Vol Twitter has been so passionate, because you have leaned into it as well. You, my friend, have a role to play in this, and you're doing it exceptionally.
I mean, it's fun, dude. Y'all are like some exotic foreign invaders. I don't get to cross swords with Tennessee too much. Normally, I'm relegated to only SEC West opponents, so it's nice exploring a new Twitter community. And it's a fascinating mixture of people who are like, F you, dude, we're coming for you. And then people who are like, I can't believe you would say this. This is so messed up. And then other people who are like, oh, I love this all. I love it all. It's like a third, and a third. So, no, look, I love it. And I get it. It's been my guy Scott Kushner, Tennessee grad, hit me with something that really blew my mind and stuck with me. And he was like, we were talking about culture and football culture at LSU and Tennessee and how similar they are from a culture standpoint. And he was like, well, what if you were stuck in the Curly Holman era for 20 years? Because that's what it feels like to be a Tennessee football fan right now. And that would be brutal. And so it's like all of a sudden you have a national power with a young star of a head coach who is just not a fluke. He has built this over time. And it seems like y'all are here to stay in a sport, in SEC baseball specifically, but college baseball as a whole, but especially in the SEC, that is growing leaps and bounds year to year with like the SEC network and everything. So yeah, it's almost like you have all this like pent up energy that now finally has an outlet where it's like, yeah, we are the big dog. We get to talk the trash, and we're going to break you when you come here. And I love that. I absolutely love that.
Without question, the tribalism of the SEC is what makes it so much fun. T-Bob Hebert is here with us on 104.5 The Zone, host of Off the Bench for ESPN 104.5 in Baton Rouge, down there, out here trolling the Vols fans mercilessly. Have you had a moment, T-Bob, because they can be relentless. I know from experience, because I myself have trolled them and have felt that rage in my mentions. Have you found yourself at all? Now, you played, so you understand what it is to have an opposing fan base in your mentions, I'm certain. But have you had to remove yourself at all at times from Vol Twitter?
No. I mean, look, now I didn't get as much playing because even then, like I stopped playing in 2011, right? So that was my last year. So even then, Twitter was a relatively new thing, and you get some of it, but it wasn't like overwhelming. But since then, look, I've been in radio since, and so I kind of do view myself as a child of the internet age a little bit, right? And so I am very used to the absurd and the insane comments that you get online and everything, and I just like to have fun with it all, dude. I absolutely love it. So when they're like, you're a grown man tweeting a student section, you're like, yeah, you're damn right.
That's right.
You're damn right, I'm a grown man. I have a 3-year lease on a black Toyota Camry. You punk. Go back to your dorm.
We love to see it. Nobody's having more fun on the internet than T-Bob right now. All right, so shall we make a friendly on-air wager between for this super regional? Depending the outcome, is this something that you are willing to entertain?
Well, this I guess it depends on the stakes, because this is where it does get a little bit more interesting. Is on paper, Tennessee is a markedly better team. Now, I'm not saying that LSU can't win.
Yeah,
and LSU's been doing a lot of against the odds stuff the second half of this season. But if we're going to agree to this, I mean, I'm going to have to see what the stakes are, what the odds are here, because I do think that y'all have a bit of an advantage going into this all.
Well, I think that we make it. I think that we make it simple. I think that both of our radio shows are on video, and I think that you would look nice in a little bit of Tennessee orange should they come out the victors in the Super Regional. And I am not above wearing yellow and gold. I am prepared to put that on the line.
You know what? It's been such a nice relationship with Vol Twitter recently. I could not possibly sit here and say no. So I agree.
Well,
I agree. I will not wear it for an entire show.
Okay.
But if we lose, I don't know if I'll be able to get a shirt by Monday. I'll try to get a shirt by Monday.
No,
Or
listen,
by Tuesday, like whenever it loses.
it will be at I will finance the T-shirt or the jersey myself, T-Bob. I will not ask you to go out of pocket if that is indeed the case, because that will be that will be the way that we make up for the competitive advantage on the field. I think that's only fair.
Okay, that's fair. I'm down. I'm down. Yes, if we lose, I will wear. When we are like recapping it, if that's the time, or if it's later, then I'll just wear it later. But yes, I will wear Tennessee gear for the show. That's a fair deal.
You love to see
I'm
it.
in.
Ron Slay, Vols basketball grade, is in the chat on YouTube. He says, "Don't let up on him, Buck. Make him wear a headband too." Now, T-Bob has been gracious with his time. We will not force him to wear a headband.
Well, also, I'm not going to wear it though. Like I'm not going to have to wear it, to be clear. Obviously,
that is correct.
Because I mean. You don't stand a chance. I'm so lucky to beat us last time. We're way better now.
Listen, honestly, we were talking about this earlier, T-Bob. I would have so much rather seen Oregon in the Super Regional than LSU. The freshman talent that you guys have on that roster, it's incredible right now.
Well, they got some great freshmen. Really, the pitching is what's sketchy for LSU because it's not that it's bad. It's just that, like, it's not deep, right? So, like, if Landon Marceau doesn't show up, you're in trouble. Like, generally, they've needed one dominant performance from either Marceau or Labus into Fontenot, where you only have to use two guys, and then you just got to find a way to win one of the other games. So it's
a tall task, T-Bob.
Yes, we will see on their and look, as much as I say that LSU has improved, which they have, they've improved markedly. Obviously, Tennessee has as well. I mean, I remember thinking back to that first Tennessee series, and we definitely had a lot of LSU elitism entering that series. Like, oh, Tennessee's pretty good, right? But, like, LSU should win. Like, I mean, you know, they won. I think maybe you'd won, like, the Florida series at that time or something. We kind of hand-waved it away, and then, lo and behold, Tennessee just got better and better and better and then finished, with the third overall seed. And I was looking at conference-only stats today, and, yeah, just on paper, there doesn't seem to be a great weakness in Tennessee. I think y'all are, like, third in batting average, first in runs scored, second in ERA, team ERA to Vandy. Here's my outlook on it. If you look at the first series, where LSU lost was the situational baseball, right? Both teams would battle to these critical decision points. And at almost every single tipping point, LSU lost that joust. So if they're going to win it this time, they're going to have to flip that script. They're going to have to win more of those they lose. Which you could say it's most baseball, but it's really not, because a lot of times they're not that even in match. That's how I view it. And where I get a bit concerned is just like, look, late game situation. Tennessee has 10 saves in SEC play to LSU's 5, so they've been better in that regard. But hey, what you can't count, or what you have to factor in too, though, is an LSU team that is playing loose. There's no question of Maneri's job status hanging over the head. They know this is the last ride. They lost an opening game of the regional last week. You have just a 7% chance of advancing when that happened. They did that. So they've already done some long odds kinds of things, and they're hungry. They're hungry for revenge.
T-Bob, just know, and I appreciate your confidence, and I appreciate this conversation. You've been very gracious with your time. But just know that this weekend, on Saturday or Sunday, whatever it might be, because I don't expect it'll be a Monday game, T-Bob.
Oh.
That you will, in the bottom of the ninth inning, LSU with a 1-2 run lead, 1 or 2 outs, you're going to be feeling confident. Don't do it, T-Bob. Don't buy those tickets, because this Tennessee team, T-Bob, they're going to walk you off into the sun. Whether Saturday or Sunday, it won't matter, because we'll all be off from watching baseball on Monday.
Oh, look at you homer. You're glowing orange.
Unfortunately, that is literally how the first round played out. Like, it was, but because of that, I'm impervious to it. Like, you got it twisted if you think I am ever comfortable with an LSU lead this season.
Yeah,
this is a team that was up like 8-1 in the 8th inning against Ole Miss, and they were going to sweep. It was the third game of the series. It would have been a full sweep. And then Ole Miss hit like 4 home runs and came back and won the game. So, no, I have no lead is safe, but that's okay. That's okay. That's why they call them the Cardiac Cats. And we're in for a doozy this week, and I can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
He's in your head. He's in your mentions. He is T-Bob Hebert. He's been kind enough to give us some of his time this morning, and we will be all watching the Vols and LSU square off in their Super Regional tonight. My brother, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for hopping on.
All right, boys. Thank you all so much. You have a great day. It has been a lot of fun. I can't wait for the game tomorrow. Let's go. Go Tigers.
There he is. T-Bob Hebert. Look at you. I saw you starting to get a little riled up. I told you I was going to fan the flames. I told you I was going to instigate. And you are all but stripped down to your orange
draws,
tidy
yeah.
whities at this point. Your orange colored glasses.
The homerism poked out a little bit
Oh
there, but
my
I'll recede
God.
back into my objective, journalistic Tennessee graduate form.
No, the ship has sailed, my brother. It is done. How excited. This is going to be a lot of fun. I am legitimately stoked for college baseball. Indiana went to the College World Series while I was in college, and that was Kyle Schwarber, that was Sam Travis. They didn't win the College World Series, but they went to Omaha and we went, and it was a great time. Outside of having like my team in the games themselves, this is as excited as I've been to watch not just a college baseball super regional, but just college baseball in general. And really, that's been the case for the Women's College World Series in softball. I thought they were done such a disservice yesterday, having their deciding game of the College World Series play out at 3 p.m. in the middle of a Thursday when nobody is really watching television. The ratings have been spectacular on these games. I'm surprised, Lucas, honestly, that we haven't pissed more people off and that they're not. But T-Bob was very respectful.
Yeah, he actually talked baseball. I mean, he was pretty candid. It's going to be a great series. Tennessee, the order in which they start in terms of Saturday, Sunday, and potentially Monday, I think Tony Vitello is going to have a plan because it's the first, if necessary, game of the season, right? It's the first 3-game series where you don't know if you're going to play Monday or not. So it's curious how that kind of affects the pitching rotation, but seems as though Tony kind of has a plan moving forward against an LSU team that is red hot. I mean, Tennessee scored 92 home runs this season. LSU hit 88. They're not that far behind, especially the top half of the order.
Right. It's going to be fascinating to watch. Coming up next, though, there is a question from a press conference. It may be the last time we talk hockey all year long until the Preds make a return once their season begins anew. But from the Colorado Avalanche getting ousted last night by Vegas, there was one question to Nathan McKinnon that you absolutely have to hear. That's what's coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Non-stop afternoon infotainment. The 3HL with Brent Doherty, Don Davenport, and Ron Slay. This afternoon starting at 3 on 104.5 The Zone.
first game of their super regional. So we will keep you updated as this continues to play out. But in the meantime, Lucas, you want to talk about soccer? You want to talk about hockey? What do you want to do here? Because I have hockey prepared. I know you are passionate about the Euro 2020 or 2021 beginning today at 2:00. I know that's what Blaine and Mickey are going to lose you in the 2:00 hour. It's going to be done.
Yeah, I may or may not.
Very happy it's not happening during this show because I ask way too much of you, and I would be pissed.
Yeah, it's unfortunately the branding is Euro 2020 because it was meant to be played last year, so they're still keeping it with that name.
Well, that's exceedingly stupid.
Well, it's every 4 years, so they're just trying to keep it on track in that sense. So there was Euro 2016 and then Euro 2020, and there's going to be Euro 2024.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be driving. I'm going to Cleveland today. My cousin's getting married tomorrow. And for whatever reason, I decided it would be better to drive than to just get a plane ticket to go to Cleveland and make life easier on myself. But whatever. So I'm probably not going to get a chance. I don't know if anybody is carrying. Maybe I find it on satellite radio. But I'm probably going to miss out on that. What I did not miss out on was some of the Stanley Cup playoff last night. Now, the Colorado Avalanche, they got ousted by the Vegas Knights in 6 games in their second-round series. And I guess there's a continual disappointment among Colorado hockey fans. And you would say, why the hell are you talking about Colorado Avalanche hockey and Vegas Knights in a Preds market? And I will tell you there is only one reason. There is only one reason, because Nathan MacKinnon of the Avalanche gave a press conference last night. And he was asked a question by a man named Adrian Dater of the Colorado Hockey News in response to, the end of yet another disappointing end of yet another season for the Avalanche. See if you can spot why I thought this was worth bringing up today.
I'm just thinking maybe out loud as far as in your shoes right now. It's like, all right, we've done all the we can do. We've done all the game planning we can do. Maybe, just we'll just go in next year and just not think anymore and just win this thing when we don't think so much. Am I on the right path at all with this? Like maybe you just guys think a little too much?
He said, just bleep it. Stop thinking.
Let's just win.
And it rhymes with buck, what he said.
That simple.
Can you imagine if I dropped an F-bomb in the middle of a Derrick Henry press conference while asking a question? Can we maybe the people didn't get to fully experience what Adrian Dater asked Nathan MacKinnon last night, but it was so, like, I had to watch it probably 3 or 4 times through. Because I said to myself, did he actually just say that?
I'm just thinking maybe out loud as far as in your shoes right now. It's like, all right, we've done all the we can do. We've done all the game planning we can do. Maybe, just we'll just go in next year and just not think anymore and just win this thing when we don't think so much. Am I on the right path at all with this? Like maybe you just guys think a little too much?
What the hell is that?
But what kind of question is that to begin with? Like, word the question better, if that's your question.
So I did a little research on Adrian Dater of the Colorado Hockey News. Apparently he's been on the Avalanche beat since they moved from Quebec in 1995.
So he has covered a Stanley Cup championship season.
Correct. And he worked with the Denver Post, but he was fired in 2014 because he had as many people are on Twitter. What does Ramon Foster say at the end of J. Martin Ramon?
Twitter fingers are always hot.
So were Adrian Dater's apparently back in 2014 because he went on a profanity-laced rant and was harassing female hockey fans on social media. And he spoke apparently with Jeff Pearlman about rehabbing his image last year. Well, guess what, Adrian? I hate to tell you, bud. I'm just like, we suck at Zoom press conferences as Titan Media Corps. I am totally prepared to admit that. And you will hear from Julio Jones and Mike Vrabel in that regard, not about how bad we suck on Zoom. We'll have to wait till Vrabel comes on the radio show at some point to ask him whom among us sucks the worst on the Zooms. And I have a feeling that it's Terry McCormick, God love him. But no, I mean, I can't think of any circumstance. One, the question is worded poorly. Like, just be more efficient with your words. And I am somebody, I criticize from a place of having done that, because sometimes when we do the press conferences, when I do press conferences while we're running them live on the radio show, I'm an idiot and I forget to take my headphones off. So I hear the echo in my ear as I'm asking a question, and it rattles me. I sound terrible. I start rambling because I've lost my place, because apparently I can't multitask, even though Lucas spends half the show talking into my ear as I'm speaking. But to ask a question, hey, have you ever thought about just saying bleep it and just stop thinking? You guys think you think too much? What the hell?
Alex Doherty. I texted Alex Doherty about this. To confirm, it was Nathan McKinnon. They call him Mac in the post-game pressers. And it was a fun game, by the way. I watched it to the end. The Golden Knights were down 2-0 in that series and won 4 in a row.
Yeah.
But Alex said, not sure if you're familiar with Adrian Dater, but he is one of the worst media members I have ever encountered.
Oh.
The only guy I've known to block other media members and players.
Oh, well, we have one of those amongst the football media. Our boy who won the terrible Titans take bracket. Doug Farrar.
Yes.
Doug Farrar, who has blocked everybody in the state of Tennessee, I think, at this point. Darius says, hungry journalism graduates like myself would never do anything like that. That's embarrassing. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. You don't do that. You don't curse like, and maybe Adrian at this point, he's supposed to be a beat writer. Perhaps at some point he turned into an Avalanche fan, and he's frustrated. That's fine. I can't think of a fan-centric, at least from a Titans perspective. I know the Preds have a little bit of this. But from a Titans standpoint, Koharski, I love him to death. Sometimes he asks questions like a fan. Like he asks questions like somebody in my Twitter mentions might. He gets upset. But other than that, like I don't hear people, we don't have fan-run outlets like Titan-sized is not asking questions in the Zooms. But apparently this is something that has infiltrated the Colorado Avalanche media in a way that has made it hugely embarrassing if you're Adrian Dater. But apparently he's done more embarrassing things previously.
McKinnon was so speechless. He just had no idea what had just happened.
He's just sitting there stunned. What do you do if you're Nathan McKinnon?
He had no idea. He just looked at their PR person, just moved it along.
Yeah, well, they went to the next question. I was cracking up. V-Love tweets us, speaking of bad media, what the hell was that question to Julio from the Atlanta person on the Zoom yesterday? So you've had Orlando, what is it, D?
D. Orlando Ledbetter.
Okay, you've had him on Blaine and Mickey, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, he was on Blaine and Mickey maybe 2 weeks ago.
So apparently, I did hear his question. It did not make me laugh as hard as the guy who sounds like Dexter from Dexter's Laboratory on Cartoon Network from the New York damn Times, because apparently Julio Jones warrants coverage of the Tennessee Titans by the New York Times.
Has to be the first time the Times is in Titans press conference availability or anything.
Kim Smith called out such and such from the New York Times. I did a double take sitting in here doing the Zoom. I'm like, what the hell? What world are we living in? Anyway, so D. Orlando Ledbetter is in the Zoom yesterday, and his question, it was something about it. I guess it was just the way that he asked it. It just sounded weird to me, and I don't know if he and Julio have a pre-existing relationship where they're comfortable with each other that way. But it caught me off guard. I don't remember exactly what he asked. It was something from an Atlanta standpoint about, did things with the Falcons end poorly? He asked, did you request a trade, or did your request of a trade have anything to do with Dan Quinn getting fired? But he didn't ask it that way. It was just bizarre the way that he asked it. I'm not sure how to describe it.
Julio was pretty dismissive. He kind of kept repeating, "No, love the fans, love my teammates. Just a new chapter." But Orlando's a character, man. He was fun to have on Blaine and Mickey.
No, I mean he's
been doing it a long time down there.
He seems like he has that potential, but again, like I was making fun of Diana because she asked Vrabel a 3-minute long question. So I have several group texts going during these press conferences. It's how we stay entertained because Zoom is rotting all of our brains. But me and Mike Giardi from the NFL Network, we were harassing Diana because she asked Vrabel literally a 3-minute long question. And the question was good. It just took her forever to get there. But it was lovely to see her yesterday out at Titans OTAs. When we come back, we are going to get into Julio Jones. We are going to discuss how he has made the Tennessee Titans a destination team. Stonks through the roof at this point. I don't know who's going to be there first on the moon. It's going to be Dogecoin or the Tennessee Titans because they're riding Julio Jones into the sun. We'll tell you what's going on with that. Coming up next, you'll hear from Julio and Mike Vrabel before Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio joins us. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
More Titans talk than anyone else.
What a catch!
Your home for Titans football and the flagship of Titans Radio. 104.5 The Zone.
Henry. A.J. Brown the same. I think if you're an offensive skill position player, you're probably looking at Ryan Tannehill if you're paying attention to what Ryan Tannehill is doing and saying, yeah, that dude is wildly efficient. He's gonna get my numbers up in a way that everybody eats. So to ask me a hypothetical, I don't know the answer to that question. I do think that players would look around if we were doing this pre-free agency and pre-draft and say, yes, I would love to play with Julio Jones, Derrick Henry, and A.J. Brown. That is the makings of maybe not a super team, but certainly a super offense. Julio Jones ring chasing, but coming here to Tennessee to do it is a fascinating thing to me. Because we talked yesterday about, what I thought of the Titans when I first got here. What I thought of this team, this franchise, this organization, coming down here and experiencing it for the first time in 2015. It was godforsaken. The offense was constipated. The defensive secondary was among the worst that I had ever seen. It was a franchise that looked beyond lost, and it had been that way for plenty of time before I got here. Really, since the height of Vince Young, have they kind of been trying to figure things out. Hasselbeck had some good years. Ryan Fitzpatrick, among his many stops. But what I have seen develop over time is a team not just on the field that has become special, but an organization that has become marketable to stars. It reminds me of, and we've had this conversation before about Mike Vrabel's first year, and Ndamukong Suh was the big name in free agency. Everybody wanted a piece. He came to Nashville. Vrabel, I don't know if Robinson went with them, but they went out to dinner, and they were pitching Ndamukong Suh to become a Tennessee Titan. Now, ultimately, he went out to the Los Angeles Rams. They put together a Super Bowl team that year. They lost, but they went. They made it to the Super Bowl. Suh probably made the right decision in all of that. But the Q rating of the Titans is such and has improved so much over the course of time that Julio Jones is saying, yeah, I know. When we asked him yesterday in his Zoom availability, he says, yeah, I know A.J. Brown really wanted to play together. I know A.J. Brown has been a fan of me, and we have spent time with each other outside of just this. But honestly, Julio Jones is saying he wanted to play with A.J. too.
Right. That's just who he is. Just a great guy. And he's gonna be a great teammate as well. It's just, his respect that he has for me. And just like I said in our previous conversations, even before, probably the trade came about and things like that, just us communicating, me helping him out, and now, just being under one roof, being on the same team with one another, it's just like, probably a dream, you know what I'm saying? But what he don't know is that, I love to play with him as well. So it's definitely mutual in that sense. So like I said, it's going to be exciting. We just got to, put that work in first. So.
Now, maybe that's just Julio being a good teammate, but it legitimately to me sounds like players are looking at the Tennessee Titans during this stretch that they've had and saying, and by the way, if you want to get involved with the conversation, 615-737-1045, 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Even just saying that, even if it's just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Patronizing is not the right word, but even if it's just saying it to be a good teammate, Julio Jones speaking that into existence means something. They have constructed a team, a roster that is prepared to compete. Julio Jones, and we heard the audio earlier. In fact, we'll run it back for you now. He's saying that it's not about the statistics at this point in his career. In fact, for him, it's never been. We'll let you hear from Julio Jones in his own words.
It's just, at the end of the day, you want to create a winning culture. However you need to do it to get the job done. My whole career, I've never been a stat guy. Previous years, everybody always asking me what you thinking you're gonna do, what's your prediction, things like that. I've never been a stat guy. I'm a team guy. I'm just excited to be a part of the organization, and whatever they need from me, to do, I'm willing to do it and play my role and play it at a high level.
Julio Jones speaking to the media yesterday after his first appearance in a Titans practice uniform. I was fascinated by the environment that it created. And we'll talk with Coach Mack about this because nobody has seen, very few people across the NFL have seen as much star power, as much history in this game, in this sport, as Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio. And he'll join us for his weekly appearance coming up next. But the environment that it creates, not just for you as fans, because I know 3HL has been having this conversation over the course of this week. Who stands to benefit the most from Julio Jones being here? And I think largely you need to have that conversation outside of Ryan Tannehill, because I think that's a bit of an obvious answer. But for me, it uplifts so many things around the team, not just the offense, not just the quarterback, not just his running mate in A.J. Brown, and we imagine Josh Reynolds to make out the top three at this point. The environment at a voluntary team activity on June 10th yesterday was unlike anything that I felt outside of Tom Brady coming here for joint practices during training camp a couple of years ago. I believe that was 2019. And as I talked about with you guys earlier, when I watched Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, and Chris Godwin, when the Buccaneers had joint training camp practices with the Titans as well, watching them across from Taywan Taylor, Corey Davis, and Tajay Sharp, and being just struck by how much different a class of player at the same position we were looking at on the same practice fields. We'll get into what Coach Mack may have learned from Julio, because understanding that these are OTAs, there are still important things to be taken from the Julio Jones experience yesterday and from this phase of the offseason that is now concluded as we head into mandatory minicamp next week. We'll talk with Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio about all of those things coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Getting you set for Titans training camp. Bam! Your home for Titans football and the flagship of Titans Radio. 104.5 The Zone.
There has never been a
break. And Mac, well, I'll save this story for later because I don't want to waste Coach Dave McGinnis's time with such trivial things. Mac, good morning, brother. How we living?
Morning, Buck. How are you and Lucas doing this morning?
Man, we are just fine. We are coming off. I know I'm trying to keep my powder dry, Mac. I'm doing my best. But Julio Jones, he's a little bit of a fuse. He got me a little lit up yesterday at OTAs.
No, that was exciting. I mean, it absolutely is. I mean, I probably did over 20 from Sunday, when the signing was made public. I've probably done over 20 radio hits across the country. I mean, it created a pretty good tidal wave, across the landscape of the National Football League, and it's a good story, and for the Titans too. I mean, yes, absolutely, that was an important moment. What impressed me, Buck, was the fact that he was there.
Right.
Because a guy of that stature. I mean, he could easily have signed and said, "Look, I'll come back for the mandatory minicamp," but he wanted to come back and at least get involved as early as he could. And of course, it goes with everything that I've ever heard about him. I've competed in games against him before as a coach, and so what he is on the field. I've never been around him, in person, but just that impressed me. And the other thing that impressed me, I mean, I know what he is physically. I mean, he's a generational guy, but just watching him interact with the other receivers behind the huddle and start explaining to them some things. I mean, this guy is going to be really good, for a lot of people, but especially that receiver room, just in the daily exchanges, because I've seen how much an impact player can have, a big difference he can have just on his room. But yeah, I mean, it was worth all of the excitement, because it's a big deal. It's a big addition.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio, presented as always by Farm Bureau Health Plans. Healthcare coverage from Farm Bureau Health Plans is like an extra set of pads when you need them the most. They've been protecting Tennesseans since 1947. Mac, I try to listen to everybody else's interviews with you before you join us during the week, so I try not to ask you redundant questions, because I know there's different audiences that come through each of the shows. But something that you said on 3HL the other day that really stood out to me about Julio Jones and the benefit that he has on the offensive line, if you don't mind, I think that would be worth kind of repeating for our audience, because when people talk about who stands to gain the most from the addition of this player, that's not necessarily the position group that comes to mind first.
Well, I mean, I look at it, from an opposing defensive coach when you start to look at it, because when you add a weapon like this to what they already have offensively, then you have to start deciding, Buck, during the week, how you're going to deploy your people. And last year, pretty much it got to the point as to where the offensive line was facing 8.5 and 9 man boxes on conflict downs early most all of the time. I mean, that was just what they were going to get. And when they were getting that, then that really, really puts a burden on the offensive line. That's a grind. That really is a grind, because to get out of a conflict down for yourself on offense on first and second down, you have got to get ahead of the chains. And to be able to get ahead of the chains, if you can't pick it up and spin it, with regularity, well, then you're going to have to grind it out up there. Well, now with Julio Jones, whether you're 12 or 11 personnel, if I'm a defensive coach and I'm looking at it and I still want to pack that box, well, then you only get to play with 11 on either side of the ball. You're going to be one-on-one. You're going to be one-on-one outside with AJ and with Julio, and people are going to come in here, and you're going to have one stud corner. Very few people have two dominant corners. And so somebody's going to draw the short straw. And so if somebody wants to pack that in there, you can go ahead and still run the football. But now you've got the one-on-ones on the outside. And Buck, neither one of those receivers now at this point in their career have to be open to throw it to them.
Right.
That's the beauty of this thing. And most of the routes that you can run off of a single high look that you're going to get from 8-man fronts, you can run those real quick bang eights. You can run those 3 and 4, 5 step slants, and then you can run those real quick double move takeoffs. And those guys, anytime now with those two receivers, that they're down the field and a defensive back has their back turned to the quarterback, Tannehill's going to put it up. He's going to put it up, because those guys are going to win most of those combat catches. I mean, you know what AJ has done. We've seen him. We saw him do it time and time again in serious combat catches down the field. I'm not talking about over the middle. I'm talking about down the field. And Julio, you saw him yesterday. I mean, he's got go gadget arms out there. I mean, this guy, and he can jump and he can. So anyway, the offensive line now, and if you're a defensive coach and you want to pull somebody out of that second level to try to buzz out underneath, to give underneath help out there, let a corner play over the top, well, then the box is going to lighten up. And once the box lightens up, it's a lot easier to come off and go at it and then get 5 and 6 yards on first down, handing the ball to that big dude we got back there in the backfield. And so everybody's going to benefit. I just know the way people are going to deploy their defenses are going to look a lot different from the front to the back.
I can't imagine how excited the offensive coaching staff must be, Matt, because I remember talking to Vrabel about this when they were kind of struggling to find momentum on the ground. This was probably in 2018, before the passing game kind of became what it is now, or what it looked like last year and in 2019 when we talked to him about, how do you think you've done it avoiding running into 8 or 9 man boxes? And Vrabel basically responded, well, I think we've done well because we've had to adapt and find ways to run into 8 or 9 man boxes, and this totally changes the landscape of things for them.
They've done the best job the last 2 seasons running against 8.5, 9 man boxes. I mean, the evidence is visible. I mean, it's on paper. You've seen it. I mean, they just did it, and they've got more 8.5, 9 man boxes than anybody in the league on a consistent basis because of the type of running back they have and the type of running game they had, and the play action worked off of that. But they absolutely, the last 2 seasons, they have done a tremendous job. But you're also going to lose some of those against an 8.5, 9 man box, because as a defensive coach, you are willing to flog gaps and take your chances. Now, the problem with flogging gaps against a back like Derrick Henry is this. I was a defensive coordinator, and I played against a lot of big backs, but not very many big backs that could take it 99 yards on me. That's the issue with Derrick Henry. You flog gaps. I mean, it's good, but it's bad, because if he breaks that first line, you don't have much left back there. And when Derrick Henry gets unwound going back there, he not only can outrun them, he can toss those other little guys into the stands. And so it makes a difference.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio here with us on 104.5 The Zone, is always presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. Turn to the folks who have been in the game since 1947. Farm Bureau Health Plans offers the great health care coverage you need with a price tag you can afford. They are all over Titans Radio content that is being produced, like the OTP that Coach Mack and Amy Wells and Rhett Bryan and Mike Keith have worked so hard to continue to produce. It's an exceptional product. I suggest that you subscribe, rate, and review to the OTP wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Mac, I guess the question that I've been kind of trying to figure out since they made this signing is we understand that there will be differences, slight differences in the offense from Arthur Smith to Todd Downing, whether it's play calling tendencies, whether it's adjusting for personnel. But I'm wondering how much Julio Jones requires them to adjust from what they are. The Tennessee Titans offense is always going to be bigger than you, badder than you. We're going to bang you up, and we're going to run through your face mask 1,000 miles an hour. Julio Jones only adds to that. But are there certain ways that they have to approach their game planning now, and I understand that it's matchup driven, to kind of take advantage of who they now have across from A.J. Brown or with Josh Reynolds and with Derrick Henry in the backfield?
Well, you're correct in saying it's matchup driven. So we'll see. I mean, we've got to see how it evolves. They'll have a base, that they will work on that we'll see during training camp. But specific game plans by the week, it'll be based, and you're 100% right, Buck. It's going to be based on matchups to see what's going on. But the genesis of this offense, I mean, this is tailor made for Julio Jones. I said it when A.J. Brown came here. I said this is tailor made for what he is able to do for his strengths, and so they will just add to it. It's going to be interesting to watch and to see again the nuances that Todd Downing will be able to add. And then week to week, it's going to be very different. It's going to be really interesting for me to watch how teams are going to try to deploy defensively, against this group. If all this group stays healthy, throughout the whole stretch, it's going to be very interesting because it will evolve. People will start to do some different things. and you're gonna have to be able to counterpunch what's going to go on. But we won't know any of that, Buck, until the regular season starts, because even what we will see and what they will work on during training camp, and then what will be visible during those 3 preseason games, will just be a little bit of a precursor or a taste to what they will do once they start game planning for real.
You've seen a ton of star power over the course of your career in the league and now working in media as well, Mac. So I'm certain that you were not quite as dumbstruck as the rest of us were watching Julio yesterday. But when we touched on this a little bit earlier, the effect that it had just by him showing up on his teammates around him, the way that all eyes were on him when he's going through the individual drills. I've never seen or felt that kind of intensity during these, something like a June voluntary off-season workout, as I did yesterday once he stepped out on the field and started to work in with the other guys. Are we overrating the impact, understanding what he is and what he's capable of on the field of play? Are we overrating the impact that he will have with the energy that he brings and making people have to step their games up to keep pace with what, or try and keep pace with what exactly Julio Jones is doing on the practice field?
Well, I don't think they will have to keep pace with him, but what they will have to do is be able to understand. Look, first of all, I don't think you can ever underestimate energy. I really don't. I mean, I think it's extremely important, no matter how. You say I've been around star power. I mean, I've been on teams with 8 Hall of Famers. Involved with them, and they do make a difference. But they make a difference because they're good teammates. And that's the thing that I took away from that yesterday, is this guy's a generational talent. He's a first ballot Hall of Fame receiver, but he was out there in individual drills. And when he wasn't going through individual drills, I mentioned this just earlier as we started this off, what I wanted to watch was to see how he was interacting with the guys, when he wasn't out there. And it was impressive, because you could see it. You saw it, Buck. I always watch practice. I always stand behind the defense to watch a practice, because then I can get spacing, I can get leverage points, I can look at it, I can see a lot of things. Because if you're watching football practice flat, if you want to get spacing and leverage points and you want to see what's going on, you got to watch it from the back end. If you can watch it from up above, well, then the sideline's a good place to watch it. Because you can see. But if you're watching it flat, sitting on the sideline, you're really cutting in half what you're looking at, and it becomes one-dimensional rather than three-dimensional. So anyway, just watching him interact with his new teammates, it was impressive. So you cannot underestimate the value of star power when it's coupled with professionalism and being a good teammate. I saw that in that very brief time that we got to see him out there the other day.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio here with us on 104.5 The Zone. We're talking about Julio Jones and OTAs. Somebody I saw for the first time on the practice field as well, outside of Julio, Mac, and I'm certain you have gotten enough Julio Jones questions over the course of the week. But I watched a lot of Danico Autry when we weren't, hovering over Julio and trying to take as many pictures and videos of him as humanly possible to produce for the people on social media. Danico Autry spent a lot of time working with Vrabel. It was his first time out there with his teammates. Jeffrey Simmons has also been in attendance at these OTAs, so they were able to get some work in with each other for the first time. I understand that schematically Indianapolis and Tennessee are different in what they do with their fronts, but in a perfect world, how much can Simmons benefit from the presence of a guy like Autry with the way that they try and create the one-on-one matchups?
Well, I think the entire defense can. I mean, we're going to have a new perimeter defense at the secondary too. It's going to be interesting to see how all that coalesces and comes together. Buck, you can never have too many good players. And again, you said, you guys, taking the videos and doing all that Julio for the fans, that's important. I mean, that's huge, because the fans deserve to be able to see that. And this year, because they're still under construction up there, I mean, I love the fact that it was so well attended, by the print and the visual media out there, so that our fans could see that. I mean, that gets them excited too, and rightfully so, because it's legitimate excitement. Danico Autry is going to help. He will help this. He will help this football team, and not just one person is going to benefit from it. I mean, it's the defense, but you've got a defense that's going to have some new pieces to it. That's the part that's going to have to come together throughout this next time once they get through with this mandatory mini camp and come back here for training camp. But that's going to be important to watch. But if you ask me particularly about Danico Autry, we've watched him play. I mean, I've vetted him. You've seen him play, against us twice a year. The guy's a player. He helped Indy's defense be good. He will help this defense be good.
Watching a signing that kind of before the Julio mess is probably not the right word, but before the Julio media storm started up, the Titans signed a Michigan wrestler who is looking to play offensive line. Adam Kuhn was out there yesterday during OTAs, and we got our first look at him as the media. Now, I know that this is a different situation, Mac, but again, I cite your experience with so many years in the league. Have you ever had a player who is coming in from a different sport who is trying their hand at the professional level at playing offensive line? We see basketball players coming in and playing tight end across the league. What goes into something like that? Do you have any experience with players like that in your past? And I guess the follow-up would be, what goes into kind of transitioning them from one sport to pro football?
Well, I mean, I think it's an interesting get. I really do, because here's the thing. I have been around. Let me back up a little, Buck. I've been around a lot of centers in this league that were excellent wrestlers in their background.
Right.
But they also came into it with a lot of football background. This guy, it was an elite wrestler with very little football background other than high school, but coming into it. But what you look at is, I mean, this is a developmental project. I mean, this is what you look at, but you're talking about an athlete. He's going to have, he's strong. He's going to have an extremely great base. I'm talking about all the things that you need to play offensive line. Strong, good base, understands leverage, understands how to use his hands, and he's tough. And he's smart. And so to me, this is a developmental project. I think it was very much worth a look. And here's the other thing too. If indeed the National Football League does put their blessing on a 16-man practice squad again this year, this to me is a very worthwhile project.
Something to monitor as the NFL still works through that process, and
Right.
they need to figure it out at some point, because we're getting closer and closer to training camp, even though the NFL summer vacation is basically on our doorstep. Mandatory minicamp next week. We will catch up with Dave McGinnis next Friday. Coach Mack, presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. Let the experts at Farm Bureau Health Plans coach you through it when you need great health care coverage at a price you can afford. They've been protecting Tennesseans since 1947. Mac, my brother, thank you as always for making us smarter, and enjoy your weekend.
Well, great to be on with you this afternoon. Enjoyed seeing you out there the other day. See you next week.
No doubt. Get some rest, man. You're talking too much lately. Everybody wants a piece of Coach Mack.
As long as I'm talking about good things for the Titans, I'm all good. I'll live through it.
You love to see it. Dave McGinnis, kind enough to give us some of his time on 104.5 The Zone. Adam Kuhn is a monster of a man. I was blown away by that. I know people looked at that and said, what the hell are they doing signing a wrestler? He's 6'5". He's over 300 pounds. He's out there squatting literal tree trunks. I don't know if you've seen this video, Lucas. But that...
Yeah, it was basically a telephone pole.
A telephone pole unto itself. Unbelievable. I'm laughing because I see a V-Love tweet that says Titans Twitter is back to infighting, and my heart is full as a result. Julio! Julio! Unreal. We'll come back. We will wrap up the show, the final segment of the week. Lucas Panzica, he's got some polls to update.
So, chatting Titans? Well, it's our favorite pastime. Your home for Titans football and the flagship of Titans Radio, 104.5 The Zone.
Say, you guys know how hard it is for me to keep my attention. Lucas has enough things going on outside of trying to make sure that I stay focused. And some of you have picked up on this matter. And we started with Julio Jones talk, and we stumbled into impressions of me. Now, Bart Barker has submitted an impression on social media. We had a bunch of people call in. We had a bunch of people take their best shot. But I think if we had to give an award away to anybody for the best impression of me, I think his voice is a little different. But damn, Lucas, he's got my cadence down.
God bless Lucas. He's trying to keep the show going 3 hours a day, keep my head on straight, keep me on track, and it's tough. It's tough. But Lucas does a fantastic job with that, so I appreciate it. You know, sometimes you have to put up with me a little bit longer. Today is Julio Day out of Titans camp, and then you know what? They want us out there. And they're trying to get it all squeezed in before the weather comes through, but I'm not bitter about it. I'm here with Lucas. I'm here with you guys, taking your calls, talking sports, anything you want to talk about, and it's good. You know, when I do think about this team, though, I think about them 6 years ago when I had the opportunity to come down to Tennessee to cover the Titans. And I was taking a look at the roster, and I was like, who are these guys? I don't even know these guys. This guy worked at 7-Eleven last year. I mean, this is where we were versus now. But this is a good thing for the Titans. I think about where I was in my life. I had $25 to my name out of college. I was eating Denny Moore stew every night on overnight shifts, 12 to 6 as an associate producer. But you know what? I'm here talking sports with you guys now. It's great. It's great. I love it. Good show, Buck.
At Barker Bart on Twitter. Jesus.
Like you said, the voice is not on him because the voice just isn't as deep, but that's okay. The cadence,
it's spot on.
It's fantastic.
When he's running out of gas, when my voice gets super high pitched, when I'm talking too fast, and I just gotta get it out.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
So thank you guys and thank you, Bart, for providing us exceptional content.
Like the voice sounds Colin Cowardish, almost.
Yeah, I mean, who would you compare me to before we get to the polls? Like, who do you think? Because solo radio is a little different, and I know that some people like it, some people don't. I think I'm okay at it. I don't think I'm the best at it. I enjoy doing the show this way because they asked me if I wanted to co-host. I'm like, no, we can do this, Lucas and I. But who do you like? If stylistically, if you had to put a bigger sports media talent off who you think I resemble, who would you say?
I have no idea.
That's what I'm saying, which is a good thing. I kind of like that. Because I can do I can't do the Cowherd thing. Colin Cowherd does sports. It's too much for me with Cowherd. And also he says ridiculous things about teams that he doesn't know. And that's tough when you're a national person because you got to talk about all the teams. And then when you stumble upon a team that you haven't talked about, then you start lobbing accusations against their offensive line that are completely and totally unwarranted. We'll get to the poll questions momentarily. Of course, we recap the polls at the end of each and every show. Lucas has produced many of them. By the way, if you're keeping tabs on Vanderbilt and their first game of the Super Regional, they are still up 1-0, bottom of the sixth. Kamar Rocker, the breaking ball, is working exceptionally well at this point, even though Vanderbilt is at bat right now, just popped up with the first out of the inning. All right, Lucas says we gotta go to Dan really quick in Goodlettsville before we update the polls. Dan, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, sir. Morning, Buck. Hey, here's the deal. Chris Collinsworth.
Chris Collinsworth.
I don't know about stylistic or thematically, but your voice is Chris Collinsworth. First time I was hearing you, I thought, man, this is Chris Collinsworth. So there you go.
Okay, I don't hate that. I think he's a little nasally. So maybe do I have that going? I will go and listen to Chris Collinsworth.
Yeah, maybe I'd listen side by side. Now that he says that, Bart's impression sounded kind of Chris Collinsworthy.
Well, my buddy Joey Molinaro, who does all the impressions for Barstool, he's got a great Chris Collinsworth.
Let's get him on the job. Try to figure out a Buck impression.
We can get Joey. I'll text him. I'm not going to Indiana. I'm going to Cleveland for an Indiana wedding. But either way, I'll see what Joey's doing next week. Let's do the polls.
I'm going to make you an offer
you can't refuse. Because the polls have closed and the votes have been tallied. It's time for a poll update, and he's a good boy. Buck Reising show producer and correspondent, Lucas Panzica.
I had some of the Good Boys red sauce the other day over a nice chicken parm. It was exceptional.
Grazie, padrino. L'Italia vincerà tutto.
Oh, what are the polls?
An expanded 12-team college football playoff, fair or foul? 79% say fair.
Yeah, more football, more meaningful football. Don't make me check out in October. Fair.
Yeah, I'm with it. Who wins this weekend, Tennessee or LSU? 76% saying Tennessee. And who wins this weekend, Vandy or East Carolina? 83% East Carolina. Most believe both will move on.
Wait, you said 83% said East Carolina.
I'm sorry, 83% said Vanderbilt. My fault.
What? But not based on the baseball game I'm watching right now.
Still 1-0.
Yeah. Do you not have it on?
No, I've got ESPN sitting here because the Euro pregame is going to start soon.
Oh, you shill.
2 o'clock kickoff.
This is more important.
El nostro anno.
The Euro 2020s, because of course they have to keep the branding on 2020, even though it didn't happen in 2020.
Forza Azzurri.
2021. Lucas could be yelling all manner of profanities in Italian. I have no idea what he's doing.
I'm not.
What else?
Julio Jones being present for the last day of OTAs. Big deal, little deal, or no deal. 74% say big deal, 18% little deal, 8% no deal. I think it's a big deal.
It's a massive deal. And if you didn't realize that yesterday, just by the way that people were talking about it, I don't know how to relay to you how much different practice or a voluntary team activity in the middle of June felt from the last time that we were out there. It's night and day difference.
I mean, the last time the Titans made any marquee free agent acquisitions in Jadeveon Clowney and Vic Beasley, those guys didn't even really want to show up until like the week of the first game.
Yeah.
No, they weren't even there for all of training camp. But Julio was coming to a voluntary workout when the storyline all offseason has been NFL players wanting to boycott these workouts.
Damn, Vic Beasley was 10 days late to training camp. For reason, and then gave one of the strangest or most strange, I don't know which is grammatically correct, but one of the strangest Zoom press conferences in the history of these Zoom press conferences. Like, Vic Beasley's explanations or lack thereof of why he took $500,000 in fines to not show up on time for training camp still boggles the mind. But it's a massive deal to have Julio out there.
Are you paying attention to Euro 2020? 60% say no, but honestly, 400 votes, I'll take that.
Sure. No, I really think, because the whole thing with soccer in the United States is, soccer has been on the come up since the 80s, basically, and has yet to make like legitimate progress within the American sports lexicon.
I would say it has made legitimate progress.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think 60% of the audience saying no is still 40% saying yes, in a way that I think that percentage would have been much lower prior to an MLS team coming here. Like, I think this is driven by people our age who are legitimately invested in soccer, who, whether because of FIFA, they are invested in EPL or La Liga or Bundesliga, and they're watching a lot more soccer than the average American sports fan might of a generation before.
Is 25 too old to play rock band? 77% say no, which is the correct answer.
You want to explain yourself?
Look, me and my college roommates got Rock Band when we were in school in Knoxville, and we started playing it, buying songs, Jimi Hendrix, Tom Petty, Billy Joel, like you name it, CCR. And then we brought it with us, Blue and I, my roommate, to our house. So we've got our guitar and our drum set. I'm like really good at the drums. I'm really good.
Okay, bud.
Blue plays guitar, and our friend that was the singer is now living in Dallas. But part of the band is still back together. We were playing it last night.
Part of the band is back together.
The Grunting Pirates, I believe, was the name of the band.
The idea that you have your own rock band name and that you would say the band is almost back together. Unbelievable. It was a fun week. This show went very, very fast. The next 2 hours and really the next 5 hours of Sports Talk Radio will continue to get you to your weekend as fast as humanly possible, because Blaine and Mickey are going to kill it, and then 3HL after that. We'll talk to you Monday.
guys like to talk, and you like to listen. Blaine and Mickey, this afternoon, 1 to 3 on 104.5